Hello, I'm Fun Sue.
I'm Brolin.
And I'm Ninja Master Phil. And today, for continuing on Women's Month, we're reviewing My Young Auntie, starring Cara Hugh, Lar Kar Lueng, and Lar Kar Lueng. In this movie, Cara Hugh plays a household servant who ends up marrying one of the series of brothers, of which also include Lar Kar Lueng and Lar Kar Lueng, in an attempt to prevent the evil younger brother from taking hold of the family's fortunes. She then goes on an adventure to Hong Kong to try to locate her now nephew, pass on this information to him so they can assist in getting the holdings of the family to pass on to the much less despicable, more level-headed members of the family. It ends up becoming a very big clash between both traditional and modern China, including westernization. Fun Sue. I mean, obviously, other than the given that it's a Cara Hugh movie, why this for our second movie for Women's Month?
Okay, putting my love of Cara Hugh aside,
As though that ever happens.
as much as a mere mortal can put his love of Cara Hugh aside, there's a lot of reasons. First of all, before you had your 80s kind of revival with Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rock and all that stuff, Cara Hugh was probably the most famous female actor in martial arts during the Shaw Brothers era. Lar Kar Lueng also being one of the most influential directors. Kind of that combo, irresistible for a month like this. And also because it is about pretty much being wrong whenever you assume things. And Women's Month is kind of a reaction to the assumption that there are no women characters in Kung Fu and that there is no women who like Kung Fu, both of which are just horribly erroneous. So in this movie, the first major assumption is, since Cara Hugh's husband is like a 70-year-old man, everyone assumes when she shows up she's going to be an old woman. Look, it's a young, pretty thing. Then no one expects her to know Kung Fu. They apparently never seen any movies that she's been in before. Then everyone meets the other members of the, I guess, good side of the family, and they assume they're going to be useless because they're old, and they end up not being useless and actually being some of the key figures in the final fight scene. Just kind of takes the stance that, first impressions are rarely the right one, and that you should probably judge people by what they actually can accomplish as opposed to what you assume they can accomplish with no real evidence, which some Kung Fu movies tend to not have that theme. Like, a lot of times kind of what you see is what you get, and this movie doesn't do that.
Yeah, one of the assumptions is also just from the Western perspective, is that, Chinese is a very patriarchal society, but there are actually just a lot of rules in place that can give women a lot of power and authority in these family households. Like,
especially once you can claim seniority, which
yeah.
is what she does.
Yeah. Once the table gets turned, then it's just rolling easy for her for a while. And I mean, sham marriage or not, it was a legal marriage, so I mean it definitely had that kind of this is the stuff that binds everyone together in this society. These rules cannot be defeated just because you're good at Kung Fu. Clearly they weren't good enough at Kung Fu, otherwise they probably could have overcome the legal system. But in this case, the movie's about the legal system winning.
Kind of on the note of assumptions, really, this movie brings out something that we haven't really shown you yet in our reviews, and that's the seemingly never-ending battle of modernized Western Hong Kong versus the traditional and very rigid mainland China. When Cara Hugh first meets Lar Kar Lueng's nephew, so the nephew of the nephew, this will be important later, she just sees this Western-taught flamboyant idiot that has no respect for tradition and no respect for culture, and he's just clearly been taken over by Western barbarians. He sees her as this backwoods hick, effectively, using outdated, outmoded traditions that really just don't fit in the modernized world. And it really does kind of heavily lean towards that there's actually, in reality, a balance between the two. They're not necessarily mutually exclusive. They can coexist. But this leads to one of the most delightful tropes in Kung Fu cinema, this is what Westerners do. which leads to the most bizarre, like, Errol Flynn ballroom party where they all don costumes of completely misnamed characters, like the Robin Hood, who's clearly Peter Pan, Juliet, who is, I have no idea, the Three Musketeers with katanas for some reason, and like just the hijinks and weird pastimes to get up to that are things Westerners do.
Yes, the Western style party that he's referring to has essentially the most random collection of characters that most Westerners would find obscure. I think Carmen shows up.
Yeah, Carmen's in there. Yeah, it's all over the place. And, but, like, he uses this to try to, like, embarrass Cara Hugh's character because, well, she's so out of date, and through kind of the hijinks of our antagonist group, they end up coming to realize that's, like, by combining the two styles, you really, you get through the world a lot stronger, because they eventually go on a big, like, tactical espionage mission, and in multiple cases, both styles become very relevant, because one just doesn't account for factors the other does. And this one really just focuses on that a lot more. Like, the only other movie I can think that really does it anywhere near as much is Fist of Legend does it a lot.
Well, Fist of Legend, though, is more about two Asian cultures clashing. Like, the Westerners are just there to look fuddy-duddy in courthouses.
Yeah. And it's also a lot more serious in this one.
Sure.
Yeah, Gordon Lau, with hair, looks just as stern as he always does.
For those of you who don't know, Gordon Lau he's the man of Kill Bill, Pai Mei fame, and 36 Chambers of Shaolin fame, also known as just that bald guy who looks awesome and everything. But he has hair in this one and looks funny.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a wig or something. I don't know.
That all being said, I believe it's time for ratings. So, gentlemen, I guess I will start that off. I give this movie a 8 out of 10. It is definitely a comedy classic from the Shaw Brothers era. It's definitely one of the rarer female-led movies of that era. Very well directed. Lar Kar Lueng and Lar Kar Lai, being brothers, have a pretty good chemistry for what little time they are together. Cara Hugh being a stable actor for Lar Kar Lueng throughout most of his career, shows up and brings an appropriate amount of ruckus. Fight choreography is great. The costumes are great. If you like the MGM musical look, it definitely has that going for it, which makes it kind of stand out amongst a lot of the kind of cookie-cutter period pieces that you'll see from that era. And seeing Cara Hugh actually in a starring martial arts role is really nice. There's only like 2 or 3 that I can think of off the top of my head where you get to see that, and it's just really good to see her just... This is one of the few movies where she just gets to like let loose for numerous fight scenes. So 8 out of 10 for me.
Berlin?
I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. I mean, it was good. It was really good, really entertaining. I prefer the Ching Che verse and the more emotionally charged Hong Kong cinema. It's like I guess just growing up on comedy anime, it was enough to just burn out the like, look how zany this is, like. And so many of the jokes, like the best jokes are like where it doesn't even bring up some of the better, like more ripe for conflict humor. The best jokes in the movie are like the initial like double takes, like, what? We have a young auntie? Like the immediate aftermath of that when like no one's being honest with each other at all, because she doesn't initially tell them right away what's going on, and then tries to actually act the matron for a while and has him to be flogged, but then he comes up with the plans that he's not really flogged, so then he can just... It's just this continuing spiral thing. Like, that part of the movie was all very, very funny. Like, crazy old man adventure, like, didn't really hit home with me, so I'm just gonna go, more of it was better than bad. 7 out of 10.
I have to go with 8 out of 10. Unlike a lot of the movies of this era, this is one that, like, as goofy as it can get, the plot is actually pretty interesting. It requires a bit more familiarity with the culture for it to, like, really all click. but it's something you can actually, it's worth watching for the plot. Like, it's not just like, look at the cool fights. Like, the family politics are actually really interesting. It does fall to its crazy, wacky, madcap zaniness, I think, a bit too much. I think a slightly more serious touch could have done this plot a world of good. But all in all, it's still, it's good, it's fun, the fight scenes are solid. There's really, they're all extremely flamboyant actors, but that's kind of more keeping with the opera tradition that the cinema stems from. It's much more of a over-exaggerated, almost kind of like stage musical style of acting, but it works for what they're doing with it, and I really enjoy it. This isn't one I'm going to watch this every 2 days, but it's like, I've probably seen this 3 or 4 or 5 times in the past 6 or 7 months, and I have no issues with that. It's just a good, solid movie.
That is our opinion on Young Auntie. If you want to see an older film that stars one of the era's best actresses doing what she does best, this is the movie to see. It is now available on Dragon Dynasty and is available in most U.S. retailers.
So don't forget to like our video, subscribe to our channel. You can always look us up on Facebook at facebook.com/foodcrewreviews.